Today we speak with the lovely Anne Vervarcke, who is a homeopath based in Belgium. She established the Centre for Classical Homeopathy in Leuven. She gives international trainings and seminars. She's the writer of numerous publications, and she's had a private clinic since 1989. With over 25 years of research, teaching, and clinical experience, Anna developed her own personal style of prescribing in an effort to simplify homeopathy. She calls this the vital approach, which she now teaches to other homeopaths worldwide, including myself. For the homeopaths listening to this episode, if you use Radar Opus for your repertorization, you can purchase the Vital Approach software to be used inside Radar Opus. If you're interested in learning about this approach to prescribing, please get in touch with Anna at www.thewhiteroom.be or check the show notes. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we get to hang out with a lovely homeopath, educator, author extraordinaire, Anne Vervarcke. Welcome, Anne.
Glad to meet you, Eugenie.
All the way from Belgium, I should say. So, as ek stadig Afrikaans praat, sal jy dalk verstaan wat ek sê?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Word for word.
So, we are going to chat about something that I am so excited about called the simplifying homeopathy. But before we do, can you tell us just a little bit about how you were first introduced to homeopathy?
Yes, I can. It's a long time ago, more than 35 years now. And I remember I was working and I had a break before because I was, like overworked, burned out before the word existed. And so I had a few weeks or months even. And I thought, instead of going back to my job, what would I really like to do with my life? Rather than what I'm doing, what would I like to do? And I was reading through the magazine with all kind of trainings and courses, and they were all interesting, all of them. And so what would I choose? And I thought, well, among all those, I have two preferences. And one is like body work, like psychotherapy, and because I did that before, and I thought, and homeopathy, because I had an experience with my children when they were small and it was a good experience. So, and I thought, this energetic body work, that's too much of a responsibility. I don't dare to do this. Let's take homeopathy. That's easier. So what?
Little did you know.
What a mistake I made. So I got in there by accident, thinking it was more medical than it really is, that I discovered later, and that it was more related to herbal therapy, which is not, of course. Mm-hmm. But as you said, little did I know, so I started with the training. And then, as I always say, homeopathy is contagious.
It is.
It's chronic and it's incurable. Once you have it, you never get rid of it. So that happened to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Now, I've just had Fridays is my batch recording days. So I do all my recordings, and I've just had the lovely Jan Schalten on, who said to give you a hug. Oh, but I said to him, I don't know if I should curse him or love him, because he has introduced so many new remedies to homeopathy that sometimes it feels overwhelming. And not just with that, but we've got so many different prescribing styles. We've got over 8,000 remedies. I actually think it's part of the reason a lot of homeopaths stop practicing, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. Now, I just want to read a quote that you wrote on, I think it was Hpathy, because this will give our audience a little bit of a background of the mind of a homeopath, what we're doing while we're taking your case and we're listening to the words, every word that you're saying, this is what's going on in the back of the head. So what level is the patient talking from? What kingdom could it be? Is he compensating or not? Is the word used a sensation word or a common expression? Is it a miasm language or sensation language? Could it be a remedy? I don't know. Maybe even an unknown kingdom. Is the patient on source level or just imagining? What could his hand gesture be that he's pointing to? Is it a state or a story that he's saying? What information can I use? But he keeps on talking psychobabble. This is what goes on in our minds when we are taking a case. So I love that you said you are going to be talking about simplifying homeopathy. So I'm going to sit back here, take a breath and relax. Well, you tell us about how we can do this impossible task.
It sounds impossible, doesn't it? And it looks like we only, chatting a bit with our patients. They're rambling away and we're making notes, and at the end we make a prescription, and it's easy. It's an easy job, And I used to encourage my patients with only saying making this sound like like meaning go on, because you were not allowed to say anything, because otherwise you're directing the case, and that's not done. And so my partner, when he heard me in the office, he said, for 2 hours you go like and then you go aha, and that means the remedy. He knows that the consultation is finished. But basically, that's what's happening, while you're doing you're doing all those things that you just said. So how in the world can you indeed do these impossible things all together and then come to a conclusion after 2 hours? That's a bit of my mission, to make this possible, because it became virtually unmanageable. If you have 100 remedies or 200, like when we started off, 200, 250, maybe 300 would do, with a good repertory and a few, search strategies, you could come up with a good remedy, not with 8,000. And I would not even limit it to the 8,000, because I prescribe on a regular basis remedies that are not included. Because, if you know where to look and you know what to look for, when you have it. Because then you have your focus. The thing that I need has to have these qualities, these characteristics. And you will look until you find it. So how to do this? You're right. More remedies, more systems. It is overwhelming. I saw my students after 5 years, indeed, not even dare to start a practice, because they felt, I will never be able to do this. And I know I will make wrong prescriptions. So why would I even start? Or they limit themselves with a very narrow broadband. And they only did this, only classical remedies, only whatever, detox, or whatever, miasmatic approach. So they follow one guru, one master. And with exclusion of all the other possibilities. And that's too bad for your patients. Because all the patients who need the remedy that is outside of your bandwidth, goes your scope. So that is too bad. How can we find the remedy, or the best suitable remedy for everybody, and not get crushed under too much information, because that's it. So I'm not advocating leaving the information out. I'm trying to teach and show how in all this information, what is the information we need, what is essential, what is reliable, and how much information do we need before we can decide on a remedy. So for me, the answer is, and I'm now making a big step because it's percolated over years, it comes down to analyzing first, like the big characteristics, and then going to the smaller and more details. So first you have to somehow have an idea of what big group the patient belongs to. So it is a way of listening. You don't have to have all the details, but you have to somehow develop an organ, I say, for listening to the essentials. And that is what I teach, because that's theoretically, but I, demonstrated case after case after case. And if I have live cases with public. And so if people sit in and we do an analysis after half an hour or something, 3/4 of an hour, and I always ask him the question, what kind of patient is sitting in front of you? What kind of case do you have? That's in very general questions. We don't even think about remedies. We just try to understand the person with the problem. So it's more important to know which person has the symptom than to know which symptom has the person. That's the quote. So I'm in line with Jan Scholten, I feel, where he, with his complicated system with numbers, actually, in other words, says the same thing, like the 3 first numbers of his plant system is about the person, not even about the complaints. It describes the person the way the person is. So for me, I call it the context, but it comes down to the same. Who is that person in front of you? Now, not a psychological portrait. You don't want psychology yet, But we want to know, how does he behave? How does he present himself? What impression does the person made on you? How does he verbalize his problem? So his introductory paragraph is very important. And in the course of time, I concluded that you have like two big groups, and I call them the 2-dimensional and the 3-dimensional groups. So before we had, like, in the systematics that developed from the late 90s, the beginning of this century, we had family analysis in plants, minerals, and animals. And again, Jan Scholten was one of the first, if not the first, the pioneer with his book on elements. So he started with the periodic table, bringing the periodic table in chart, and explaining it as like an evolutionary progression of a human. Of course, it's all symbolic. It's not reality, because we don't prescribe on reality. We prescribe on as if. And that understanding we have from Sankaran. That delusion equals disease, or disease equals delusion. So we prescribe on delusion, on the as if situation, the perceived situation, so the out of reality situation, which basically is disease. So Jan Scholten started with this outlining the characteristics of the periodic table. Then later, of course, the question was, and what about plants? Is that a kingdom in itself with characteristics? Yes, the question was answered with yes, and same with animals. But then for me, then my question was, what about all the others? What about carbons? They're not on the periodic table. What about bacteria? What about sarcodes? We have so many remedies, thousands, that are not even in these 3 boxes. So limiting ourselves to the 3 boxes was again a limitation. Like before, we limited ourselves to, I don't know, 30 polycrests and then 200 remedies. And now we're going to limit ourselves to 3 boxes, and we're going to squeeze everybody in. That's not a progression. So that's how I came to the conclusion that a lot of people who sound like minerals are not minerals. They just sound like minerals, but they have different other characteristics. And not everybody who sounds like a plant, who sounds like an animal, is a plant or an animal, can be a fungi as well. So there's another group we have to incorporate there. And not all plants are the same. We have primitive plants, we have, not flowering plants and flowering plants, angiosperms, gymnosperms, and even more primitive plants. And also in the animal world, there's a vast variety. So we need a little bit more differentiation. But the biggest one for me is like 2D and 3D. Now, 2D and 3D, I brought this concept, I put this concept on a map. You've probably seen the map. So this
yes, I've got the radar opus module.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it is a very simple, I find it, a very simple like world map of all the groups and families that we use. And it's almost, you could almost say it's like a world map or when you go on a treasure hunt, which basically is finding the remedies, a treasure hunt.
Sorry, my parents-in-law just arrived.
Okay.
You guys are so naughty. I got a photo. Sorry, I knew they were coming around this time, and I was hoping the dogs would be quiet because they always like to sleep by my feet when I'm recording because there's nice air conditioning in here.
Good.
Sorry, you were saying?
So, yeah, I say that like a homeopathic consultation is almost like a treasure hunt. We want to find the best remedy for the person, the simillimum, the holy grail, which is the remedy with the biggest potential of harmonizing like all levels in the patient and make him feel physically and mentally, emotionally at the top of his possibilities, which is in the way the most beautiful work you can do. So if you go on this treasure hunt, you better have a map. Yeah.
You're going to get very lost.
Yeah, especially when you know there's at least 8,000 remedies to consider. So that is then my roadmap. Like take the roadmap, and if you go on a treasure hunt, and then you see you have 2 pages. So the one page is 2D groups, and the other one is 3D. What do I mean with 2D? Well, the idea is based on the concept, because it's all conceptual, that we have different dimensions, and of course there are more than 3. But for us, we people, as we live on the surface of the earth, that is 3D. That's the 3rd dimension. That's the realm of animals and plants and humans. Under our feet, there's also a world, more dense, more dark, but teeming with life anyway. So we think it's not, but it's also the realm of bacteria and viruses and a lot of chemical processes, and also the building blocks, if you want, of 3D. Because all the elements, all the ores, all the crystals, it's all under our feet. That's a more dense world, but it's like, as I said, the building blocks of, and it's the source. It's where the roots of the plants go for food. It's the source for food, for nurturing, for health. So our 2D is basically our underworld, and then you have 1D. So the first dimension would be the crystal iron, the iron crystal in the center of the planet Earth, and then you have 4 and 5D. But for practical purposes, 2 and 3 will do.
That's enough. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just keep it to those 2.
Exactly, making it simple. It's the same with the vital approach. I use like 5 levels. There are probably more levels, but I think for practical purposes,
don't add any more, please.
No, exactly. And it works. It is practical. So what do you find on 2D? Of course, you have the elements. That's the whole Jan Scholten system with the 7 rows on the periodic table. We're familiar with that, so that's good. You don't have to learn anything new. We already know that. But then if you have a patient that is presenting as 2D, and I will explain how it is, and it's not one of the elements, you have here on the map the other possibilities. So it could be bacteria, it could be sarcode, it could be gemstone, it could be a celestial body or a virus, but how will you know? Well, that's the core of my training. How will you know? But first, you have to know on which page are you, this page or this page. 3D is animal, plant, or fungi. So I boiled it down to the characteristics of the patients, 2D and 3D. And that's very interesting, but also it's fun because 2D patients present in a particular way. Usually, they're more factual, they're more sober, they're more simple, not simpletons. I mean, they can be highly intelligent, but the case usually is more simple. It's more
uncomplicated.
Uncomplicated. One problem, even if they have 2 problems, it boils down to the same. It's more about my capacity. My students, when we analyze a case, as soon as the patient starts to say, I can't, they know it's 2D. I can't do this, I can't do that, I lack the capacity to. I wish I could, all that. It's about I can or I cannot. So that's my capacity. It's about function, about role, about meaning, about all these conceptual things. They do have feelings, of course. Everybody has, we're human. The feelings, fights, everything, but they label them instead of sharing them with you. So that's a very important distinction. And if you know that is a pointer for a particular dimension, you're safe. You can lean back and say, okay, 2D, at least you only have half of the possibilities.
Only a few thousand remedies left.
Oh, yeah. Same with 3D. If your patient is engaging, he asks, how are you today? Or do you have a new haircut? It's good on you. Or your office is very bright. You have a lot of light here. Or some patients walk in and they say, glad to meet you. I saw you on the internet. I thought you were bigger. Or I thought you were taller. If they start like this, we know we're in an animal kingdom. Because they're already giving comments on how you are. They're already, let's say, testing you. Like, oh, you are like this. Actually, it's a bit an inappropriate remark because it doesn't matter. But since they're in an animal kingdom, they're always looking around, like who is there and who is bigger, who is faster, who is more beautiful, who is richer, who is... So, and they let you know, while plants would just be engaging. Ask your mom, is she better? Because they heard that you had to go to the hospital a few weeks ago and to visit your mom, and they will remember. And they will feel with you, empathize with you. So these opening remarks are sometimes enough. If a patient says, I'm so affected by what's happening in the world, I'm affected by a plant statement. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, okay, your decision is made, but already you have what I would call a dot. And for me, homeopathy, if you boil it down to the essentials, it is pattern matching. You have a pattern of a patient and you have a pattern of a remedy, which we know by provings, and we match the patterns. That's the law of similars. A similar pattern will bring about health and well-being in a patient. That's, our whole homeopathic theory in a nutshell. So in order to see the pattern, we have to be on the lookout for the dots to connect. And when you connect the dots, you have a pattern. That's like a children's game. And that is what I'm trying to make people sensitive to. What is a dot? And one of the first dots is, on which page are you? Is it a 2D dot or is it a 3D dot? Then you already have, as I say, half of your possibilities. Now, let's say you decided on a 2D dot. Then you have 7 possibilities. You have 7 rows. And as I said, people are familiar with the characteristics of the row by Jan Scholten, so that's good. You don't have to learn anything new. And let's say you decided it must be a 4th row. And 4th row is what I need is, or do I have the capacity to sustain myself? That's basically 4th row. I want to be like a normal person, a normal citizen. I already, 2nd row, I'm a separate being. I build up my identity. That's 3rd row. I know who I am. 4th row. Can I sustain myself in the world? That's 4th row. So it's simple as that. And I always boil it down to simple essentials like that. If you don't have it, it is not 4th row. Even if people talk about their work and they talk about their relationship, which about everybody does, because that's the theater of our life. So that doesn't make a person 4th row, because everybody talks about these situations, these circumstances. But this can be any remedy on any level. A 4th row is, how can I sustain myself in the world? And how do I perceive the world? I want law and order. I want security. I want a job, a family, a house, a pension, 3 holidays a year, a car. I want what everybody else has. It's society. There should be law and order. There should be police to punish the wrongdoers and all that. That gives me safety and security for my life. Otherwise, other people would just die if they were forced to live like that. But a lot of people, for them, it's what they need in order to be okay, their conditions to be okay. Because that's my basic question to the homeopaths. Let's say we already moved on to the second part of the consultation. You did your big division in 2D and 3D. Maybe you even came down to the conclusion it must be a plant or animal or mineral or whatever. Then the question is, what are the conditions to be okay? And if the conditions to be okay for your patient are, I need security and predictability and certainty, that I need the capacity to sustain myself in society, we know we're on 4th row. That's all, I think, kind of simple. I mean, I think we're all capable of doing this. I hope so. So let's say you came down with conclusion, 2D, 4th row, and then you see on the map, normally speaking, you would give an element of the 4th row on the periodic table, 18 choices.
Wow.
But, yeah, so 18 remedies to consider, and maybe a few mixtures, but not so many on the 4th. Well, you have all the kalies and the calciums, but anyway, only, maybe 30 or something. But then you feel like the issue is not there. The issue is, for instance, more emotional. There is more, concern for the family well-being and all that, and emotional suffering because the quarrels, and that's not all on the fourth row. Mm-hmm. But still, the person has the wish to be a normal citizen and to do whatever is asked from him, and he has this a bit of a distant and aloof presentation of his problems. Then we have 2 more or 3 more now. We have the sarcodes, we have the gemstones, and the waters. Mm-hmm. 3 other groups to consider. Do you know them or don't you know them? It's not a problem. It's not even a problem. Let's say I never prescribed in my life a water remedy, aqua, whatever. It's no problem. You already know 2D, 4th row, 3 possibilities. It's not elements, so 3 possibilities left. So now you boiled it down to 3 families. Mm-hmm. Now you can start your repertorization. Mm-hmm. And it's even more helpful if you study the characteristics of these 3 families. Then you only have to consider 1. So the characteristics are also on the map. And I also, introduced them in my, in more detail in my, software search program, which I call the SMART program. It thinks for you. You don't have to think, it thinks for you. And then you can type in a few keywords of your case, knowing that you want to consider only 2D, 4th row groups, and then see what comes up. And then let's say you want to check the characteristics of the sarcodes, you click on sarcodes, and there's a box opening with the sarcodes elemental keynotes.
I can definitely vouch for that program. I've got it in my radar opus as well, and it's a wonderful program. Yeah. It's really easy to use.
It's very easy. It takes 15 minutes to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the information is all from cases. It's all original from cases.
That's amazing. And did you say there's over 500 remedies are there now?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Over 500. Yeah, in that program. Yeah. And Anna, for any homeopaths listening that want to learn about this, I know I purchased your course through Naturopathic Continuing Education, and you've got an introduction course there, and I've got the advanced course as well, which is about 40 hours. But is there anywhere else that you teach this as well, or where would you tell the homeopaths to go to learn more about this approach?
Oh, on my website there is this online training. I think it's called the Vital Approach, and these are 10 clips. We were going to make 10 more, but we did the basics. The 10 clips are all over YouTube as well, and they're for free, outlining the idea of the Vital Approach. So what is it? It's the 5-level diagram. What does it mean? It's about miasmas and kingdoms, and then it's the main groups, and then some clips are on examples, except for instance, some plant families. So that's the basics, the 10, and this I think 1 hour a clip, so it must be around 10 hours. And then we have the Fridays with Anne, which is very informal. That's a colleague, friend who always asks me a million questions, and I say, why don't you just record them?
Yeah. I've watched several of them. They're great. It's with yours, Tay.
Videos, he's great, but all these questions, and he has interesting questions. So that's why I say just record them, because otherwise. So those clips, we also have like 20 question and answers with Renee Otter. These clips are also on my website. So there's a lot of videos, clips is all for free, by the way.
Amazing.
And if you go, for instance, on YouTube, you have introductory clips for the Family Finder. With Luke Norland, there are a few, like what is it all about? What can you do with it? How does it work? So I think there's lots of information for free. And then those courses that you mentioned, you have to pay for them, but they're not very well prepared with PowerPoints and all that.
It's amazing. Anna, do you think it's important for a patient when they're coming to see a homeopath that does this style of prescribing for them to do any sort of groundwork before they go in? Or is it better for the patient just to go in with an open mind and just not worry and just kind of go for it?
Absolutely. They don't need to prepare. It's even better not to prepare, because as spontaneous they can be, the more reliable the symptom is. That's why I always say to students and homeopaths, try to refrain from questioning at least the first 3/4 of an hour. Although you might, be tempted, because you think, oh, you just said a sensation word, I have to grab it, forget it. Yeah. If it's important, it will come back. If it's not important, forget it. Because otherwise you risk leading the patient and giving the patient the idea that where you need to go in order to find the treasure. It's not. It's the patient leading you. And so the more they are spontaneous and not knowing, the better. Because if they come with a list of symptoms, well, okay, that's also a symptom.
Yeah, that's true.
Everything is a symptom. I always say there's no way you can hide your state. There's no way.
I actually had a client yesterday, and my adult initials is usually an hour and a half. But after 45 minutes, I said to her, I'm just going to charge you for a child consult because I literally cannot pull any more information out of you, because it was just one sentence question, actually one word answers. It was so hard to get information out of her. But of course, being homeopaths, that in itself gives us a clue as to what remedy she needs. So yeah, it's I always try to make, I don't know, I just want people to get an experience for what it is like to go to a homeopath. And it's so different for everyone. It's not something you can really tell somebody what it's like. And that's why I try to have lots of different people on the podcast so that our listeners can see so many different ways of approaching a case and so many different ways that we can help you. And so like you were saying, just be open-minded and go and see a homeopath. And I think the most important for a homeopath, and we heard it a million times, is, receive a case. And receive a case means sit with your patient without any judgment, of course, the unprejudiced observer, which is from Hahnemann, and so true, that you are genuinely curious to know, who are you? Yeah. And it's a magical thing when a patient is willing to share himself with you. So that's almost a gift that the patient gives to you, trust you enough, and to show to open his heart and soul for you. Their real feelings, their real experiences, and they only do this when they feel, I think, at ease, understood, heard, and accepted whatever they tell. And that you just feedback, I understand, please go on. What do you mean? Because if you don't understand, you ask for more clarification because you want to understand. And you don't make any assumption, psychological assumption or some judgment about their composure or whatever. You just want to know, who are you? How is your world? How is it to be you? How do you perceive your world? How can I help you? That's a homeopathic experience, I think. And in itself, I think it's a bit of a healing thing for both, that you can be that open and authentic with each other. The homeopath has then a skill to say, well, that's your remedy. Yeah. Anna, have you got some examples of cases from your clinic, perhaps? And sorry, I'm jumping this on you right now, but do you have some cases of where you've used the vital approach and what remedies you ended up giving? Have you got maybe some more unusual remedies and how you've come up with them? Sorry, I jumped that on you.
No, it's good that you decide how open I can be with this, but I don't do anything else than prescribing funny remedies.
Oh, good. Please tell us. I was actually at the end of every episode, I always say, what's your 3 favorite homeopathic remedies? But for you, I'm going to say, what's the 3 remedies that you've prescribed that's not in the Materia Medica, or the 3 most interesting ones that you want to share with us?
Well, you might have heard about the gift that I discovered I have.
Yes, I have. I have read about that you can actually know what remedy a person needs even before they've made a consultation.
Okay, so then I don't have to tell you all the details about it. It's quite shocking for me to discover this because, I was this hardworking homeopath, this with the analytical mind and telling my students, don't go for feelings, you have to have arguments. It won't get you through your exams. I need justification. And then of all persons, this happens to me,
Homeopathy keeps us humble.
Yeah, maybe just because I was hammering on this argumentation and evidence and all that. And then I find myself in a situation that I say, this is the remedy because I know. See, how do you know? Well, it's a bit hard to explain because I know, And I came to terms with it after a few years because it took a while. And now I work with it as if it's the most normal thing on the planet, but it's not. Because every time somebody comes, I'm now in the position of knowing the outcome and being as curious as I always been, like who is the person with this remedy in this state? So my position changed, but my interest and my curiosity didn't change. I don't have to solve the puzzle anymore, but I want to understand the way to come to it. Because only in that way I can share it with the homeopathic community. And they benefit from it. Otherwise, I could do my practice and prescribe, 5-minute prescriptions, and it would always be a similabim. But we would miss the healing effect of the encounter with the patient, which is very important. We would not be able to manage the case, which is as difficult as prescribing a remedy, because, effects of remedies are different with different people. I would not be able to find the exact potency at the exact time if I didn't have a case, because I need a case for that. So I would not be able to explain management either. And as a homeopath, we want to understand. We want to, as I said, we want to be there with the patient and know how is it to be you. So it's not very fulfilling to say, well, you need this gemstone and go in peace. I don't want to see you anymore. That is not my calling as a homeopath. So these two things come together. So it's a gift, and I consider it a gift. Although it complicates life in a different way, but I'm feeling grateful for the possibility to do this, because every time you give a similabim to a patient and you see them afterwards and you see how miraculous this can work in people, it's such a pleasure. It makes your heart sing every time. Yeah,
it's amazing.
So to answer your question,
so you sort of start with the answer, and then you have to reverse engineer it to get the equation, so you can then share that equation with the other homeopaths, and then what the answer will be. That's really special.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, and that's how this came about. So I tried to find ways to share this information. So it is user-friendly. It's easily accessible. Everybody can understand it. And it's waterproof, because I see it again and again and again in my patients. So it is always confirmed. And as I said, I do patients in public because I want people to be there, to experience how we came to that remedy, and how in their private practices they can do it now by themselves, because they've seen the proof of it anyway. So the 3 most important remedies, that's an impossible question, because if you go to the Family Finder, you will find like more than 100, maybe 200 or 300 that are, let's say, original. And I prescribe celestial bodies like Venus and Mars and Jupiter. I prescribed all kinds of waters, like aqua Vichy and aqua Elman and
Sanicula.
Sanicula, of course, but that's the known one. Yeah. All kinds of funny animals. So like giraffe and bears and deer and camel. Oh, camel, that's nice. I have a few camels.
Wow.
Kangaroo. These all speak to our imagination. Elephant, but also all kinds of butterflies and earthworms and whatnot.
We have the best job in the world.
So anything can be a remedy, really, literally everything. Yeah. Also
Absolutely.
Drugs and alkaloids and human artifacts like, monosodium glutamate and aspartame and all those remedies, viruses, name them, RNA viruses, DNA viruses, all kind of plants, of course, bacteria. Everything is a possibility. And so I prescribe lots of lesser known or unknown remedies, but I think that's my niche, because if the person needs a pulsatilla, he will not come to me. Why? The first homeopathy consultant he got pulsatilla.
That's true. So they probably would have gone to all the other homeopaths, gotten the polycrest, and then if they need the weird stuff, they end up with you.
Something like this. That's what I'm saying. That's my niche. And of course, I do have a lot of patients who went everywhere and who seen every homeopath in the world,
Well, you just got me excited because I prescribed aspartame for the first time this week. Well, one of my little clients with autism. So that was from Town Janssen's book. I'm excited to hear how that goes. And I prescribed kangaroo. It was Lacropus giganticus.
Yes.
For somebody who was very homesick recently. So it was a lot of homesickness or somebody who came from another country to Australia and didn't quite feel that she didn't fit in here and was very homesick and hadn't quite established roots. So I can't tell you how it's gone, but I love this job. And I love that this tool that you've offered us is now opening up all these other possibilities to us. I mean, I complain and I tease that we have so many tools in homeopathy. It actually sometimes makes me crazy. But at the same time, I always say I want to play with all the toys. I actually love that there's so much out there. And I sometimes feel that being a homeopath, one of the biggest things we can learn is being comfortable with being very uncomfortable because you can never get comfortable in this job. There's just so much to learn. You always have to be open and receptive to new possibilities. And with this gift that you've received, it's getting me very excited that it feels like this feminine, and I know you've talked about the masculine and feminine qualities in homeopathy as well, but I can just feel this feminine quality coming in with homeopathy. And we've had Angelika Lemke on the podcast who does intuitive homeopathy, and Sarah Valentini. And it gets me excited that there's all these homeopaths, female homeopaths that are tuning into their intuition and actually acknowledging it and embracing it and using it to heal.
Yes, it's so right what you're saying, because funnily enough, of course, homeopathy is part of the world, the outside world, and if the world is, more on the masculine side of, believing in science and all that, which is a belief system, that. And everybody, I think, find it a bit funny that, there's in a class of students, there's 99% women. Always, there's one man usually, and who is teaching?
Males.
It's a man. Always.
Yeah.
How is it possible? This whole classroom of, in 5 years, they finish the job. Nobody feels capable of teaching. The only man will, jump on the front and say, I will teach. And so that's because of I think it's a societal thing. Like we raised like that. We expect men to say more interesting things than we do, and they're more factual. And homeopathy was actually more factual and repertory and rubrics and calculation and the intuitive side was a bit suspect. Now with my system, the first part is very analytical, very. So 2D, 3D, what row you are, then what column, and so you got the group. That's your roadmap. Mm-hmm. Then the problem starts. Let's say you know it's 3D, it's the second row. Okay, you'll end up with insect. My goodness, insects, there are a few 100,000. Where do you start? You can repertorize. I always say, use your material, whatever material is out there. Mm. So you need an insect. You do your repertorization, you put a filter over it, only insects. I only want to see insects. You will end up with Blatta or with Cantaris, but anyway. Mm. And so if you're not happy with that, then you can use your little hints of your case and your intuition. Mm. Because sometimes we will need our intuition for the last step. You need a gemstone. Okay, you need a gemstone. How many gemstones do you know? Let's say you're very well at it. 40? Yeah. I have a little poster here with the 800 most important gemstones. The 800 most important.
No, there's
Don't
not
get
many.
me wrong. Once you delve in one group, there's always it's opening up like in the thousands. You need a fungi,
it really
same story.
does. Yeah. And
Being
even like with the
10,000.
repertorizing, a butterfly hardly ever comes up when you repertorize. And I
No,
interviewed Matricia Marr today, who obviously teaches about the butterflies. And I love using the butterflies, but you will never find it in a repertorization. It's only
no,
through intuition and through like using systems like yours that you would actually come up
yeah.
with a butterfly remedy, because it will never come up in your repertorization.
Repertorization. No, so that's why I'm saying you're going from the big to the small, because repertory is details. And if you start with the details, you're lost. But if you know you're on 3D, second row, insects, well, butterfly is an insect. And then you can go look for butterflies, because then you know what you're looking for. The treasure must be there on that spot. Otherwise, you start to dig in the whole world. That's your repertory. The repertory covers the whole area. And it deals with the details. And you can't come to a right remedy by accident with the detail, but hey, we can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Anna, it was so lovely to talk with you. And I feel it's such an unfair advantage because I have watched, dozens of hours of you speaking. So when you came on today, I just felt like I knew you because I've spent so much time with you, listening to you online and, doing your lectures and stuff. So I just want to thank you for your time. Just quickly, can you let our listeners know how they can get hold of you? I will pop it in the show notes as well, but just how would you like to get people to get hold of you and your books? And Anna was also a author of novels in her previous life. So there's some novels that you can purchase as well. So how can people get hold of you?
The easiest is the website, I think. The website is www.thewhiteroom.be, be from Belgium. And you can email me. It's my name at thewhiteroom.be. Again, so Anne Vervarcke without capitals or dots, or info@thewhiteroom. You will always also arrive in my mailbox. Yeah, that's it. Website is everything. The books are there. The articles are there. The clips, the agenda, the upcoming webinars, everything is on the website. I think that's the easiest.
Wonderful. Baie dankie vir jou tyd vandag. Ek waardeer dit baie. I don't know if you understood any of that.
I did.
Oh, you did. It's so creepy how Dutch and Afrikaans can be so similar. But just want to thank you with all my heart for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I will be using your system more and more and more. And I hope more homeopaths jump on board as well and get into this, especially if they're feeling overwhelmed. This can be such a nice way to just kind of systemize everything for them and just give them something valuable to work with, and hopefully get to play with some very interesting remedies as well.
Okay, it was my pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.